how to make $100,000 a year playing poker. So let's begin first by looking at the big picture, how you can make $100,000 a year playing online poker. And to do that, we want to look at a simple formula, which is the expected value of winnings, which is the multiplication of dollars per hand times hand played. This is the simplest way to look at your expectation playing poker. How much money are you making per hand multiplied by how many hands you play, which gives you your total earn. Now, of course, this is just a simplified version of the big picture because in reality, it may be difficult to pinpoint exactly how many dollars you will earn per hand because of things like variance. But you can still get a general idea by focusing on your win rate and taking a sample size that's going to give you a clearer picture of what it looks like. And the more you play, the more clear that picture and that expected dollar per hand is going to be. Now, when it comes to variance, we know, thanks to what Jonathan Little said, that volume cures variance, and that the more hands that you play, the more likely you are to get lucky for all the times you get unlucky and to get unlucky for all the times you get lucky as well. So the more hands that you play, the more the variance is going to be muted per se, and the more your win rate will be closer to your true expected win rate. So the cool thing is that by playing more hands, you are naturally muting the effect of variance and getting closer to the results that you deserve and getting closer to your true win rate. So by playing a large number of hands or sample size, you're already moving towards that true win rate. And now we just focus on the other side of the equation, which is how we can increase that dollars per hand. And the way to do that is increasing your win rate. That's the key to boosting that number so that the amount that you deserve will be larger than it was previously. Now, let's go ahead and break down both variables in the equation so that you can learn how to maximize your expected value and get closer to that $100,000 a year playing online poker cash games. Okay, let's start with dollars per hand, also known as win rate, or in the case of Poker Tracker or Hold'em Manager, if you're using those tracker softwares, BB or big blind per 100. Now, we're going to look at the factors that affect dollars per hand so that you can recognize where you can put your attention so as to be able to increase your dollar per hand and to increase your expected value of total winnings. So, factors affecting dollars per hand. The first one is your skill level, and this can be improved by studying and using the content in the Poker Coaching Premium members area, or if you don't have a membership at Poker Coaching Premium yet, you can improve your win rate by watching more of the free training content that's available right here on YouTube. Next up, we have the level of competition, and this can be improved by game selection. If you're playing in games that are softer, if you're playing in games with weaker players, lesser competition, you're going to naturally, as a result of that, have a higher expected dollar per hand. Ways you can look at this: when you're scrolling through a lobby, you can look for tables with a high players per flop percentage because it usually means players are playing too loose. You can look for tables with a high average pot, which it doesn't always check out, but sometimes if the average pot's really big, it may be because someone's tilting and, going all in every hand. And the best way to identify good games is if you have your opponents pre-labeled because you've played lots of sessions with them, and you look for your mark of the whale at the table and try to get in those games whenever those players are on. Third thing that's going to affect your dollars per hand is your state of mind and body. And the way to improve this is the self-care, the off the table, the mental game side of poker. By putting some time and energy and attention and effort into fitness, into diet, maybe into meditation, into socializing, into having fun, you're going to ensure that you always feel your best, have a minimal amount of stress, and can therefore play your best when you sit down at the tables. And finally, one of the things that we have that affects your dollars per hand is the actual stakes that you're playing. Obviously, higher stakes with the same win rate in terms of big blind per 100 is going to be more dollars per hand. The same win rate at a lower limit would lead to lower dollars per hand. So just as an example, if we're winning at 8 big blinds per 100 at 50 NL, that would be $4 per 100 hands, or 4 cents per hand. If we're winning at 6 big blinds at 100 no limit, which is a lower win rate but a higher stake, we're making $6 per 100 hands, or 6 cents per hand. And if we're winning at 4 big blinds per 100, which is half the win rate we had at 50 NL, but we're playing at 200 NL, now we're making $8 every 100 hands, or 8 cents per hand. Now, it's easy to think, okay, well, I want to make the most money, so I just got to go move my way to the highest stakes. And it's not that simple because there are a few factors at play. One, the level of competition is probably going to be higher at the higher stakes. You need to be ready for that competition. Two, your comfort level with the amount of money that you're playing for is very important, because if you feel like you're playing outside your comfort zone, you're not going to be able to play your best poker. Finally, your bankroll must be big enough to handle the swings at the higher limits that you're playing. And that's why bankroll management is so essential, because of that variance that comes into play in the short run that is muted in the long run, can negatively affect your bankroll if you don't have adequate buy-ins behind to play at the limit that you're playing. So a good test is that if you're feeling bored with the limits that you're playing, you're probably playing too low. And if you're feeling overly excited or anxious or stressed, then you're probably playing too high. And that's a good natural way to check in if you're playing at appropriate limits. Remember, this is a long run game. This is a long run plan. We don't need to move to the higher stakes as quickly as possible, even the mid stakes as quickly as possible. We want to be focusing on improving our confidence so that we can confidently move to the next level and believe that when we do, we'll be able to stay there. So I made a little note that stakes should be the last thing that's considered, because when you focus on improving your skill level, you focus on finding games where the level of competition is weaker, and you focus on keeping your state of mind and body in a peak state, all those will naturally lead to you being able to move up stakes more effectively and more sustainably. Cool. So that was the dollars per hand side of the equation. Next, let's move on to the other variable in the equation, which is hands played. Now, this is where most people make the mistake of thinking it's impossible to get the kind of earnings that they want from playing poker. Yes, it's hard to make $100,000 in a day playing poker, or in a week, or in a month for that matter. But if you're putting in consistent hours, following a schedule, and getting lots of hands in, you'll find that the large dollar numbers aren't so unattainable. Because when you are focusing on increasing the number of hands played, you're increasing the variable on the right side of the equation, which when multiplied by a modest win rate or dollars per hand is going to lead to a large number of total winnings. We can increase any of the variables on the right side to increase that variable on the left side, which is total winnings. So let's look at the factors which affect the number of hands played so that you can start to strategize on how you can improve or increase the number of hands played per year if you're looking to hit that 100K per year playing poker. First, we have session length, also known as time on tables. So every hour played increases the total hands played geometrically. So, if you play for 2 hours instead of 1 hour, you're going to get twice as many hands. But it is worth knowing what your personal sweet spot's going to be, because there tends to be a drop off in focus after you hit that sweet spot, and the quality of play typically goes down a little bit, which is going to lead to a lower dollars per hand. So there's a bit of a trade-off that happens there when we go for those marathon sessions of 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours. Next, we have the number of tables played, and every table added will increase your number of hands per hour geometrically, right? So if you play 2 tables instead of 1, you're going to get twice as many hands per hour as you would if you just played 1 table. Third, we have the number of players per table, which is an interesting one that's often forgotten. The more shorthanded you play, the more hands per hour you're going to get. A 3-handed table is going to get many more hands per hour than a 6-handed table would be. And it's not just double, it's actually 3 or 4 times as many hands. So if you're able to play short-handed poker and you're finding games that are good, that are 4, 3, 2-handed, instead of 5 or 6-handed, you're going to get many more hands per hour in. Finally, we have the number of sessions. And just as an example, 5 sessions per week is 5 times the number of hands as 1 session per week. 2 sessions per day is typically 1.5 to 2 times the number of hands as 1 session per day, because the second session is usually a little bit shorter than the first one due to the decrease in focus and mental energy that's there later in the day. Okay, so now comes the fun part of stacking things together and getting the multipliers. So we'll take again our formula here, looking at hands played, and see the example of stacking effects. So let's start by looking at if we play 1 table for 1 hour, it's about 120 hands per session. Now, if we decide to play 4 tables for 1 hour instead of 1 table per hour, now we're getting in 480 hands per session, an increase of 4x. What if instead of playing for 1 hour One table, we play one table for 4 hours. Now, once again, we're getting 480 hands per session. But here's where the real powerful stuff comes in, where we get those stacking effects. If we play 4 tables for 4 hours, we are now getting 1,920 hands per session instead of 120. And if you can maintain a similar win rate while 4 tabling for 4 hours as you could while 1 tabling for 1 hour, you're making 16x as many dollars per day in expected value as you were when you were just 1 tabling for 1 hour. And this is the power of volume. Now, note, when mapping this out, it's easy to think you're a robot and say, I'm just going to play 8 hours a day for 12 tables at a time, 7 days a week. And then boom, I'll be getting like 100,000 hands a week, which is like 5 million hands a year. But the reality is you're human, not a robot, I think. And it's important that in addition to playing poker, which is going to take energy and use focus, that you engage in activities that will replenish your energy and renew focus. So, couple signs to look for and to watch out for. If you're getting tired and losing focus, you're probably pushing yourself too hard. If you're timing out on hands or feeling rushed on decisions, you're probably playing too many tables or playing too high of stakes. If you're getting emotional and frustrated easily, then you're probably cramming in too many sessions per day or week. So for me, the sweet spot for session length is 2 to 3 hours. And if I'm going to play 2 sessions per day, then the second session is usually going to be shorter than the first, something like 1 to 2 hours. For me, the sweet spot for number of tables depends how tough the games are. If the games are very soft, then I want to get as many tables as possible, something like 9 to 12. However, if the games are tough and I'm going to have to make a lot of decisions that's going to require a lot more thinking, a lot more challenging spots, then the sweet spot lands somewhere around 4 to 6 tables for me. And I'll do my best to ensure that those 4 to 6 tables that I pick are the best ones available. Note, although playing short-handed means more hands per hour, it also means making more decisions. So if I find a good heads up or 3-handed game, then I'm probably going to play less tables than I were if all my tables were 6-handed. But because that short-handed game is going to be really good, it's going to be worth it to play fewer tables as a result. And for you, it's probably going to be a process that you just kind of feel out. So for me, the sweet spot for sessions per week depends on what else I have going on in my life. If I have no other work, I can easily play 7 days a week if playing just 1 session per day. But I would still be wise to take at least 1 full day off to recover if I'm doing those double sessions. So if on the other hand, I have like work projects, then I find it's best to play shorter sessions or just play on the days of the week when I have no other work. And there's nothing wrong with being a weekend warrior. If you have, a career going at the same time as you're playing poker, your poker is really supplementing your income rather than being your primary source. Okay. So now that we've looked at the inputs and discussed how you can optimize each of them, let's look at some basic math to work the outputs to have you making $100,000 per year playing online cash games. Let's assume that you're playing 200 no limit. And maybe you have to work to where you get up to this, but you can get there. Let's assume you have a win rate of 5 big blinds per 100, or $10 every 100 hands, or 10 cents per hand. Let's assume you can comfortably play 8 tables for approximately 1,000 hands per hour. And let's assume that you play 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, for a total of 20 hours per week. So expected value winnings per week, 10 cents per hand times 1,000 hands per hour times 20 hours per week, 20,000 times 10 cents, $2,000 per week. If you play 50 weeks of the year, we now add 50 into the equation for our total hands for the year. And that's taking 2 weeks off of playing leads to $100,000 per year. And this doesn't include deposit, reload bonuses, rakeback, VIP rewards, free rolls, and promotions, or any other loyalty bonuses that you're going to get from the poker site. And if you're putting in this kind of volume, anywhere from 40 to 100,000 hands per month, you're certainly going to be getting rewards from the poker sites that you're playing on. Cool. So just a few common questions to address before we wrap things up. First one is, what if I'm not playing 1-2 no limit? Your winnings may be lower, but your win rate may also be higher. So, 10 big blind per 100 win rate at 100 NL is the same as a 5 big blind win rate at 200 NL. Conversely, if you're playing bigger, A 2 big blind win rate at 500 NL is the same as a 5 big blind win rate at 200 NL. So the ability to play at higher limits is very powerful in terms of your ability to increase your dollars per hand, but it's important to be a winning player in the games when you move up to them. And that's where working on your game and watching the material on the Poker Coaching YouTube channel and at pokercoaching.com is going to make a huge difference, because you don't just want to play in the bigger games. You want to have a positive expected value in the bigger games so that you're actually making more dollars per hand playing bigger to go with that extra variance you're taking on. Next question, what if I can't play that many tables? And this is fair. This is a skill that is progressively developed. Most people are capable of playing at least 4 tables simultaneously. And even that is 500 hands per hour when you're not playing Zoom. So it's something that you progressively can build up to. Once you get from 1 table to 2 tables, then it doesn't become that hard to go from 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. It's just progressively moving up and not going from 1 to 8. It's getting comfortable making your decisions, making your pre-flop plays, and getting used to your sizings. And once everything becomes automatic, you can play more tables. It's kind of like when you learn to drive a car, and at first all you can do is drive the car, but eventually you can listen to music while you're driving, have conversations while you're driving, because a lot of things just become automatic and happen unconsciously. Third question is, what if I can't play that many hours? And the $100,000 a year playing online poker that we discussed in this video is geared to people who either want to play full-time or for high achievers who can juggle a serious hobby on top of their career. Nobody says you need to hit these numbers. Making an extra $10,000 to $20,000 a year from a side hobby sounds pretty cool to me. And, you know, if you have a good career going, there's no reason you need to make an extra $100K from playing poker. You can make whatever amount makes you happy, and the hours required for that are probably going to be much lower than the ones discussed in this video. The main question to look at is, what do you want from the game? If you're already making more than 100,000 anyway from something else, you probably don't need to make that 100K from poker. And is 100K really necessary? Are you playing the game for profit? In which case you're going to want to make a plan like this and stick to it and get in those hours, get in those hands, increase your dollar per hand and maximize your earnings. If you're playing for pleasure, maybe that's not such a concern and you just want to play when the games are the juiciest and the most fun and the most entertaining. Or maybe you're playing for passion, where your goal is to be the best player you can be and you're focusing on quality of play, but you aren't so worried about quantity. Ask yourself what you want from the game and simply honor that. All right, that's going to wrap up this presentation. This has been Evan Jarvis for PokerCoaching.com. Hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned a thing or two and maybe can make a game plan that's going to help you improve your dollars per hand and your total number of hands played. That's going to lead to more winnings at the end of the year. If you want to see more free poker training videos like this one, make sure you click that subscribe button up there or check out this playlist for even more poker coaching videos. Till next time, this has been Evan Jarvis for PokerCoach.com. You know what to do. Take what you learned, go out there, and get stacking.